The psychopaths are like cats playing with mice. It doesn't matter if the mouse is a nice mouse or a nasty mouse, whether it's a pretty mouse or a rich mouse or anything else. The cat doesn't care. It's just something to play with.
Welcome to Hack Circus. This is part 2 of the Mary Turner Thomson interview. I strongly recommend, if you haven't done so yet, that you listen to part 1 first. Sometimes I do 2-parter episodes and it doesn't matter which part you listen to first, but it really helps with this one if you get the story before you listen to this part. The first part is her recounting what she went through, and this part is all about how she's turned that experience into something positive and the things that she's doing now. So go and listen to part 1 now if you haven't already, and I'll see you back here in an hour or so. Right, are we ready? Good. I absolutely love talking to Mary. She's one of the most inspiring people I've ever met. Just a joy to talk to, so positive and strong and wonderful attitude. Thank you for listening. The fact that you listen gives me a reason to make these, so if it wasn't for listeners, then I wouldn't be in this privileged position. If you enjoy these, which are all obviously produced for free, then one thing you can do to help me is just give a quick star rating on iTunes or write a quick review. That means that we increase our chances of getting sponsors on future episodes, and I can carry on doing these because it's really all I want to do, and hopefully you're enjoying them too. If you want to talk to us on any of the social media, we're on everything: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, IRC, everything, as Hack Circus or Hack Circus Podcast, so hopefully you can find us there. And if you want to email me, it's editor@hackcircus.com. I'll be back on Monday for the usual Creativity Clinic episode, but until then, Mary Turner Thomson.
You should hear them talk about it. They love being in the media. They love actually going on TV. They get very cross with me if I get interviewed and they don't get to be interviewed too.
Sorry,
they love it. Yeah.
And they've now got lots of brothers and sisters exactly the same age as them.
Yes. Well, my 14-year-old has 2 14-year-old sisters and a 14-year-old brother. So both the nanny, I think the nanny and the wife were both pregnant when he contacted me saying he was infertile and couldn't have children. So, yeah.
It's just mind-boggling. It doesn't even make sense. The science of it, how the chances of everybody getting pregnant at the same time seems to me quite... Unless there are loads more, all of slightly different ages. That's the thing. So, do you think he believed anything that he said himself? Do you think he... No.
It's a lie. It's a game. It's a manipulation. I don't think for a moment he believes it. He knows exactly what he's doing. It's quite a visual thing I'm going to do, but you're going to have to see if this works. Yeah, but there are 2 points in your skull, then your top of your brain, which is the crown, either side, right and left of your brain, where if I snapped my finger in front of you and I just went crack, you'd wince. Your head would come down or your head would move backwards, because it's like 2 hot needles going into the top of your skull. Do you recognise that kind of feeling? Yeah. That is an chemical empathic response to somebody else's pain. So if you see a child running and they go smack and they scrape all the skin off their knees, you go, oh, ow, you'd actually feel pain for that person's pain. And that is something that the sociopaths and psychopaths are lacking. They don't have that response. And because they don't have that response, they look at everybody else going, ooh, they see everybody else reacting and they're going, what idiots. Why, sort of like they don't get it. They think that not all of them, but some of them think that emotion and empathic response is people being fooled into thinking there is such thing as emotion. We're cattle, we're idiots, because we actually respond to people in a different way. Because we don't control people, we are controllable. And, so they don't think anything of us. They don't think, in a weird way, Will Jordan probably has more respect for me than he does many of his victims, because I didn't just lie down and lick my wounds. I stood up and said, no, I know, sort of like, it's a weird thing, but, he probably has more respect for me than he does any of the others. I do know that in America, he turned around to Michelle and he said that he messed with the wrong woman and he messed with me, which I take as huge flattery.
Yes, it's a dangerous game, isn't it? Taking compliments from psychopaths. So did you...
So true.
So you have to be careful with these things. Yeah, I mean, I have to say, it seems like you're almost the extreme opposite of him. You're very empathic. You're very good at relating to other people and communicating and interested in the real world for what it is. Yeah. Do you think that's kind of affected his selection process?
I think one of the things I have noticed that all the women he chooses are intelligent, strong, caring women. They're all single mothers.
Right.
I think he targets single mothers, because they can't just drop anything and run after him. So they're kind of tied down. They're also, a single mum is looking for a different kind of guy than a single woman. So he can portray that kind of security and, stability that a single mum is looking for, whereas, the sort of single women are much more about the bad boy, aren't they? I think genuinely that the psychopaths tend to be trawl fishermen, not line fishermen. All right, whereas sort of average person would be going, online or going into a pub, that there would be certain people that they would actually target. That makes sense. With the psychopaths, they'll just target everyone and then see who bites. Yeah. And the thing was, I was the right combination. I was a single mum. I was intelligent enough not just to go, oh yes, how lovely, and I was going to challenge him. But I don't think it has anything. I certainly don't think that he will have changed his modus operandum after me. He'll carry on targeting who he targets. Just I've made it a little bit more difficult for him. I've put his face out there, put his name out there. There's information out there wasn't when I was looking. There was no information out there to follow up on this guy. You could have googled him and there'd be nothing. Now at least people Google him or do an image search on him or anything else, they can actually find prison records and books and websites and psychopath night.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, it's a great service.
All sorts of things. Yeah. So there's I mean that's one of the things we do have. We have this information age where we can actually share knowledge about these kind of people.
Do you ever feel angry now? You seem very level and very positive, actually.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. No, I don't feel angry. I occasionally feel a little bit sorry for myself. But I think everyone does, don't they? I'm not angry is not the right word. The one thing, and the reason why this inspired John so much is because he said, "How are you so rational and straightforward about this? Why are you not a mess? Why are you not in floods of tears?" Bearing in mind, I met him a year after it all happened. And it's that finding out that he was a psychopath, understanding why he did it, it made me realise that it's nothing to do with me. I was a target, I was a mark, I was possibly quite naive, but naive because I didn't know that people like him existed. Not naive in the sense of sort of just thinking the world was a wonderful place and everything else. I didn't. I knew there was, all shades of grey, but I didn't think sociopaths or psychopaths actually existed in the form as he is. I thought psychopaths were weird axe murdering, killers, usually in America. But just the sort of like all the Criminal Minds stuff you watch, and things like that. But I didn't think in a million years I would ever meet one. And I thought there must be about 1 in 1,000 people or 1 in 10,000 people would be psychopaths, and it's not. It's 1 in 100. It's 1% of people in the world are psychopaths, and it's like 25% of the prison population, but 1% of society, which means that the ones in prison are those that aren't good at it. Sort of like, and it's like God. The 1% society, 1 in 100 people. And if you think about the amount of people and Will Jordan affects far more than 100 people in a year, because it's not just the women that he's doing, it's the businesses he's ripping off, it's the siblings, the mums, the sisters, the brothers, the aunts, the uncles, the friends around it who are dealing with this traumatized and victimized woman. It's like a bomb going off in a community, what he does. Not to mention the thousands and thousands of pounds. He's affected my children's lives because they've got a mother who doesn't have any money. Sort of like, I'm an author, but most authors are impoverished. I get by, but I had a home, I had a house, I had all sorts of things, which is completely gone. I have the 3 most important things that matter, which are my kids, but sort of like in a good positive attitude. But yeah, it's like a bomb going off in a community. And if you think about how many people he affects, it's far more than 100 people in his lifetime. Yeah. So even though it's 1% of society, there is so little chance that you or anyone who's listening to the programme actually have not been affected by a psychopath. And they range from sleazebags to serial killers. It might be that person in the office who just shit stirs just to mess with people. And you think, well, why? Why would they do that? Because they can. Because they have no conscience or remorse that stops them. Because they are bored. Psychopaths get so bored because they have no reward structure. They have no... It's not about love or about who cares about you or about that feeling you get when somebody holds your hand or puts their arm around you and you think, I'm loved. They don't care, right? They don't care about any of that. With them, it's power, sex and money. So they're bored. They're, sort of like to them, messing somebody around in the office or, messing a girlfriend around or messing with other people's relationships. That's what entertains them. So all these people that you think, I don't know why that guy did that or why that girl did that. Oh, yeah, only 25% of psychopaths are female.
Yeah.
So...
Surprised that many, actually.
It is extraordinary. So it's like people who think, and that's what I was naive because I didn't think that... I would ever be affected by a psychopath.
It's not very well known, I don't think, that there are... that was the first time I'd heard that statistic when we were in Sheffield listening in the audience, because there were 900 people in the audience, yes.
So I'm saying it'll be about nine psychopaths, except for the fact that psychopaths like going to talks about psychopaths. So I love the fact that John turns around and says, no, so there could be carnage.
So this seems like a good point to bring in the American elections. What's your feeling about that? You said you've been watching it avidly, following the story. Do you feel that Trump is a psychopath? Does he certainly shows some of the traits?
I think what's very interesting about the psychopath test, it's 20 points, and the points are you either score yourself on 0, 1 or 2, or you score someone else on 0, 1 or 2. So, for instance, the first one is grandiose sense of self-worth. You're either not at all, 0, or 1 a bit, or 2, so definitely. So the maximum score you can get is 40 out of 40. If you are classed, I think it's under 20 out of 40 over 20 out of 40 in the UK, you're classed as a psychopath. If in America, I think it's if you get over 30 out of 40, because they class some of these traits as being good business, as opposed to sort of like so it's slightly different, sort of like how people see it. But there's grandiose sense of self-worth. So I think you probably get a 2 for that. Shallow affect, probably a 2. Pathological lying, yeah. We've got juvenile delinquency, criminal versatility, many short-term marital relationships, sexual promiscuity, lack of remorse, revocation of conditional release. So saying you'll do something, making a deal, and then going back on it. So it's like if you go down the list, it's quite revealing, I'd say. I wouldn't want to go on record as saying anything about the president-elect, but yeah, if you look down the actual list of the 20 points and then try and work it out yourself, it's actually quite frightening. I will say that when I've gone down the list, if I'd seen the list before I found out about the truth about Will Jordan, I would probably given him about 3 out of 40. The fascinating thing is that having gone down the list after I know the truth, he gets 40 out of 40. He's actually one of the most prolific psychopaths in the world, and I just happened to get lucky enough to marry him. The psychopaths are like cats playing with mice. It doesn't matter if the mouse is a nice mouse or a nasty mouse, whether it's a pretty mouse or a rich mouse or anything else. The cat doesn't care. It's just something to play with. John asked the question about why I wasn't upset about it and why I can talk and crack jokes about it and everything else. It's like when you realise it's not personal, it then becomes a matter of, well, if they're the predators and I'm the prey, just like a zebra getting away from a lion, the zebra wouldn't sit there saying, oh dear, I got caught by a lion. It would turn around and say, thank God I got away. And it would look more carefully around itself to make sure it never got caught again.
Yes, yeah. And I mean, that's something that came up in the questions as well, was about, I suppose, whether it changed your attitude to other people or whether it's made you more cynical.
I'm probably more cynical. I think I'm far more aware. I do occasionally have conversations with people, and when I'm talking to them, go, Certainly, I've helped quite a few friends who have been in relationships which were very, very unhealthy. One of which whose new partner told her he was a widower and that his wife was dead, and that she was also a widow and had inherited money from his insurance, and she was just about to invest all her money in the scheme that he was investing his insurance in, and I just asked the question that most people wouldn't, which was, are you absolutely sure his wife is actually dead? Because why would anyone, if they said they were going out with someone, would they turn around and say, are you sure? because it wouldn't be the first thing you'd think of, would it?
Yes, yeah.
But it is what occurs to me. So yeah, I probably am more cynical, and it did turn out his wife wasn't dead. He was just a con man.
So it's kind of a gift to you and your friends and everybody you meet in a way. This
It has. I've chosen to remain single, not because I'm off men or anything, but because I didn't want to bring another man into my family with my 3 children and have them have their image of men ruined if it went wrong, if that makes sense. I would rather them see me be happy being single and sort of get into a good healthy relationship than get into another wrong relationship. That makes any sense. So I've stayed single myself. You never know, maybe once the children are a bit more grown up.
You're a motivational speaker, right? You kind of tell your story.
I do several things. One is I when I became a published author and I saw my name on the cover of a book, I felt marvellous. It really is a wonderful feeling. And I thought, I want my 3 children to feel like this. And then I thought, I'm thinking way too small. I want all children to feel like this. So I started a publishing company. And I publish books by children for children. And what I do is I work with schools, particularly in Scotland, mostly around Edinburgh, and it's spreading out from Scotland, from Edinburgh. But I go into schools and I help schools publish books. So the kids get to see their names in print, the parents get a keepsake, the teachers get a showcase of their work, and the school gets 100% of the sale of the books. So they actually raise money for the schools. So I have great fun. I have a lovely job. So that's my bread and butter. But I also do things like motivational speaking. I do a lot of women's groups. I do, stuff. I love doing that. I really enjoy it. I do a talk that's called Solid Gold Clouds, which people turn around and say, oh, well, with the book, you've got a silver lining. And I'm going, you're missing the point. Everything that happens to you in your life, whether it's good or bad, leads you forward to the next thing. Experience is what you get when you don't get what you want, and wisdom comes from experience. So, you can't look back on your life and regret things. You can't change them. You can't make any, but you can learn from them, and you can help other people learn from them as well. Nothing's wasted. It was an extraordinary experience. Not one I would choose to go through again, but can't stop it from having happened. So might as well use it as a springboard to do other things.
So inspiring. You really are, though. It's really incredible. No, it's completely... God... Yeah, I suppose a lot of people listening to this probably think they've been through some things in their life, and then you kind of hear this story and go, my God, the idea of kind of, being able to turn that into something positive, and then something which I always try and communicate on this podcast, the idea that actually not everything's about you, and it's not, first of all, not everything that happens to you is personal, and secondly, sometimes the best thing that you can do with your experience is, or always really, is share it with other people and see what benefit you can give them from it. And I think that's when people get very anxious and upset and angry, is when they don't realise they're supposed to be sharing it somehow. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about?
It's been lovely talking to you.
Oh, thank you.
It's been lovely. And it's like, I have got a website, which is maryturnerthomson.com. If anybody has been through something awful or just is inspired and wants to say anything, you're very welcome to contact me through that. There is a contact sheet on it, and/or I've got a Facebook page as well, so if they want to, they can put comments on there. So I always reply, always, because it's like, if somebody's been through something awful, or and so many people, the one thing I really want to get across to everybody is that you should never ever be ashamed of being a victim of a crime. And so many people are, particularly if it's been like love fraud, and so many people don't want to tell anyone it's happened because they somehow feel that they're... 100 years ago, women wouldn't stand up and say they were raped because they were branded as sluts, right? They were branded as fallen women, even if it was nothing to do with them, they had no choice, it was a violent, act against them, but for some reason they were branded this way. And society is changing. We know that that's not the case, and yet we still, if somebody has been conned, the con man is seen as this glamorous, person who's fooled the idiot, and it's not the case. I'm not an idiot, and I know I'm not an idiot, and I guess that's why when it all happened to me, I just kind of went, how did this happen to me? And it made me look at it very carefully. But there are a lot of people who just feel completely demoralised by it, and they shouldn't feel embarrassed by it, certainly. If I can help, I'm happy to.
Yeah, that's a lovely message. You mentioned briefly before about the some of the sort of tells that when you're talking to people in date, and I imagine you meet a lot of people in your work, and there's statistically quite a few of those that are probably going to show some signs. What are some of the other things, I don't want to say we should look out for, because obviously there are false positives as well, but have there been maybe some examples from your experience where you've kind of gone, that's the end of that encounter?
No, there are several things you can look out for. One is very intense eye contact. Right. Psychopaths are very, very intense. I mean, we're now looking at each other very intensely. But it's very intense eye contact, because most people kind of look around and chat as well. But no, psychopaths are very, very... it's a very flattering thing.
Right.
You know, so you feel very connected to them. So very intense eye contact. Another one that I always think is funny is that, you know how if somebody yawns and you yawn, if somebody, that's an empathic response. So if everyone in the room yawns and one person doesn't, you can look at them and go, because they're a psychopath, or they might delay a bit and go, So there are certain things you can look out for. Certain things like, you know, if something doesn't seem right, and I hate it when people say, you know, if something seems too good to be true, then it probably is. It's like, no, because when you fall in love with somebody, of course it's too good to be true. You know, it's like if you fall for someone and they fall for you, you know, how many people feel like this person's out of your league? And it just... that doesn't mean that it's too good to be true. So I hate that when people say that, because that's all 2020 hindsight, isn't it, when people do that? But make sure you meet their friends, meet their family, because you can find far more about someone by how their family and their friends treat them than you can by how they talk about themselves. So that's a real key. If you don't get to meet their friends and family, that should be a warning sign. That, and as I say, intense eye contact and somebody moving faster than you want to move. You know, if they're sort of dragging the relationship forward, which certainly in my case Will Jordan was. He proposed to me within a month. He was sending me flowers. He was telling me he loved me within weeks of being together, which was far faster than I would have. But I just let it slide. I let it, you know, I thought, you know, well, okay, let's see how it goes.
You don't necessarily question these things.
No, but it's just like if it's not comfortable, you know. And the trouble is, I would say probably any psychopathic relationship, you know, it does feel incredibly comfortable. So it's pretty crass to say that, but yeah, just be aware that psychopaths are out there. There's a lovely film, made by Czechoslovakian in English, called I Am Fishhead. And it's well worth having a look at. It's online. It's an online film. It's not TV or anything else. It's all online. It's free to watch. But the lovely line about that is that the sociopaths may be the stinking fish heads of society, but we're the shoal. They may make up 1% of society, but we are 99%. And if the 99% are aware of sociopaths and psychopaths, then they haven't got so much power. It's when we don't know that they exist, when they are silently moving through us and manipulating people and pulling them down without them being aware of it. That's when they can do damage. Education of the 99% is what makes the difference.
It's like such an original way of seeing the world as well, to think like whenever something isn't going right or seems a bit off, then you start looking at the people involved and you can start... Not in a particularly paranoid way, but, you know, you can kind of go through and think, is there somebody here that's not quite as they should be in this situation? And sort of looking at the people as the kind of cogs in the situation that's going bad. And Ronson's stuff about the power structures of society and the idea that the reason that society is structured as it is at least partly because psychopaths are so good at getting power and holding on to it.
Well, what they do is it's a lovely thing in the I'm Fishhead that talks about corporate psychopathy, and what they do is that they might be on the bottom rung. So if you think of a business being like a pyramid, so on the bottom rung they've got their colleagues, and what they do is they knock out the colleagues. They make the colleagues look stupid. They make them look, you know, sort of by blaming them for things, not necessarily even true things. They'll turn around, oh, this actually happened to me, and I know, you know, sort of like I can look back on my career and go, now I get it. Now I understand why that happened. But they'll do things like they'll say to a boss how, you know, they've just noticed such and such who was supposed to be off sick was actually at a party, or, you know, what, I mean, he was off sick? I saw him on Facebook the other night. Doesn't even have to be true, but they will knock down their colleagues. And then when they've got nobody else who's in a position to move up, they will then pull their boss down from above. So will then do something that undermines what their boss is able to do, and then they're gone, and the only person that's left to move into their position is the psychopath. So they move up a tier, and then they do the same thing over and over again until they get right to the top. And that's how they work. And it's, you know, sort of like if you have no conscience and remorse, it makes perfect logical sense.
Yes,
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah,
you know?
It's a game. Yeah.
It's a game. And the same as politics, for instance, or business. I mean, if you are completely ruthless and have no empathic response and no caring for your workers or anything else, you can take a certain number of millions and make them into billions.
How does it make you? Yes, exactly. When obviously you've studied this stuff a lot and are very knowledgeable on it. has it been emotional for you to study it, or have you kind of been able to find some fascination in it?
I find it utterly fascinating. I think you probably tell by the way I'm talking about it. I don't find it emotional at all.
Good.
You know, I really don't. I think it's opened my eyes to so many things, and I think that psychopaths and the way their brains function, it's incredibly logical. I actually wonder whether they're more evolved or less evolved than us. They're really quite special. And it doesn't mean, if somebody is a psychopath or is born a psychopath, it doesn't mean that they will become a psychopath, sociopath. You know, what doesn't mean they're necessarily going to do bad things. I never describe them as evil, by the way, ever. I mean, some people do. But I think, you know, saying somebody is evil is saying that there's a force behind them that's nothing to do with them, that is making them do bad things. So that's what the word means to me. But they know what they're doing. They just choose to do bad things because it's not like they're delusional or anything. They know exactly what harm they're causing. They just don't care. And I think it's utterly fascinating. So, yeah, I'm not emotional about it at all, as you can probably tell.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Have you seen Prophet, this American series from the 90s?
No.
It is about the film you're describing. I thought it was really similar. And it's about a guy who is a psychopath, has a really weird upbringing, and you only get this when you see he's sort of in a romantic relationship with his mother, who it turns out is like actually his stepmother, and she's like his age, and it's really weird. But he goes into this corporate career at a kind of low level and just manipulates his way all the way. And it's a comedy, and it's very dark. And I was thinking, if you're interested, it might. This is why I asked about emotion, because I thought things like this, I wondered if they're a bit triggering ever. Like, do you ever? But it seems not. It seems like you're just interested. You're positive about it.
It really is. I mean, it's not. This isn't a facade or a public persona or anything else. I genuinely, I'm unemotional about it. The best therapy in the world is writing a book.
Right.
You know, because when you write things down, it's like you've got spaghetti in your head when you've got troubles. You know, you've got everything. You've got, what do I do with the children and what happened with the relationship and money and everything. And it's like all these ideas are kind of in this massive ball of tangled up spaghetti, and by writing it down, it's like getting one end of that and then just laying it down on the paper, and by pulling out that one strand of spaghetti, suddenly there's more room, and then you can pull out another one, and there's none left. There's nothing, there's no emotional residue from that relationship left. I mean, apart from writing it down, that book's been now out since 2007. It's now that's 9 years. Goodness me, 9 years the book has been out, and for 9 years I've been doing. I think we've done 8 documentaries now for television. I've done, I think, probably 30 radio shows. John Ronson show live tour now as well.
I'm so late to this.
So no, not at all. But it's lovely that it's still so topical, and it's still such a. I mean, the subject of psychopaths is certainly becoming more and more talked about. I think when I first went public with this, I think it was even more shocking because people weren't really talking about it, and it wasn't. I think whereas people actually start to, possibly because of the political climate, thinking much more about psychopaths, and I think with communication the way it is as well, it is changing and good. I think it's great because, as I say, if the 99 of us are aware, then
and as you say, we're all living increasingly online, and they're all online, so it's something to be aware of, as I'm sure some of us have probably suspected already in our interactions on the internet. But so just to wrap up, because I've kept you for ages, what are you working on now? Where can people see you or read you or find you? You said your website and your book. Are you writing any new books at the moment?
I don't know. I'm toying with the idea of writing Surviving Psychopaths, which is how to survive them, how to recover from them, just as a layman's guide. So I'm sort of toying with that idea. I wrote a joke book which was called The Sociopath Subtext, which was what sociopaths think but what they actually say, and what they think.
Wow.
So when they say things like, I hate bullies, actually what they mean is they're such tactless amateurs. And sort of like when I didn't want things to end this way, but what they're actually thinking is because you've still got some self-esteem left and some money in the bank, things like that. It's the kind of toilet humour kind of book. So I did that. But I've written a book called Trading Places with Natalie Hutchison, who is a most fantastic lady. Yeah, there's another person you should maybe interview. But yeah, no, I'm sort of mostly working on the books with the kids. So but I've got a few books left in me. I'll do it at some point.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so.
It's so exciting. Yeah, and again, if people want to see Mary, live in the Psychopath show on tour, then you've probably missed this one unless you get some cancellations, but you can book for next spring.
So popular. It's been amazing.
How are you coping with the travelling? You must be like going back to Scotland every weekend. It's only just started last week, didn't it?
It's a 2-week tour. So we did it all last week, and then we've had a day or two off, and I actually feel more exhausted after the day off than there was a kind of momentum going. And but in March, I don't think we've got a break. I think we're going straight through. So
see tired Mary on tour doing a wearier version.
It's quite easy though, because I just sort of stand on stage. I mean, John's the one that has to do the whole show, so he's so funny. It just when we're sitting backstage and we kill ourselves laughing at the jokes every single night. Yeah. The same bit we laugh at, same bits,
It's
so
funny. It's a surprisingly funny show given what the subject matter, but also that as you say, I noticed the two of you. There's Mary and another lady who are being interviewed in chairs at one point, and then there's sort of questions, and John does some stuff from the front while they're still sitting behind, and you can see you guys just cracking up at the jokes, which was really lovely. And especially when I thought, well, they've been on tour all week already, they must have heard this every night. But it's so lovely that there is, I think the structure of the show is excellent. Like I was watching this, this is so good. I love the fact there's video. I love that there's a Q&A bit, and there's a live interview on stage, and John's doing his own, to the extent that he feels comfortable. It's not like he's sort of forced himself to do 2 hours of standing up there. He's sort of gone, and I'm also a journalist, I'm going to interview some people and showing them. I just thought it was great.
It's a lovely format. It's very relaxed. We have no idea what we're going to say before we go on stage. It's not like we've, because we're talking about true life, we're talking about stuff that we've actually done. And every night I try and tell John something new that I've not told him before.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how long I'll be able to keep that up for. But I do try and come up with one thing and go, oh yeah, and.
Oh, that's great. It's different every time.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And that's it for this week. Thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to find out more about Mary, go to maryturnerthomson.com, THOMSON, and you can find out all about the book she was talking about and the things that she's been involved with there. She's on Twitter as Trouncy Flouncy, TROUNCYFLOUNCY. So follow her there and you'll find out about upcoming tour dates and so forth, and she's been retweeting stuff about the latest tour as well. I'll see you again on Monday for Creativity Clinic and on Thursday for another great interview.